You said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations. And
that was Daniel Martel about 3 weeks ago. You can see Daniel Martel is painfully aware of what's being said about him online, so painfully aware of what's being said about him that he's asked, he claims, for a polygraph. It's possible the authorities asked him and then he consented, and now it's being framed as a request from his side. But he's right. While a polygraph can't clear you and it isn't admissible in court, taking one is taking one step forward in proving or demonstrating one's potential innocence. I mean, the parents of Madeleine McCann, as far as I know, never took one. Amanda Knox never took one. The Ramseys took 3 years to take theirs, and when they did, the first tests were inconclusive. Just a day or so ago, I think it was on the 28th, Martel claims the polygraph did happen, and the results were in his favor. Let's listen in.
The children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, says he has been interviewed extensively since Lily and Jack were first reported missing.
You mentioned last time we chatted that you'd offered to do a polygraph test.
that is correct.
Has that already happened?
That has happened.
Right. And did you get results from that yet?
I do have results, and I don't know if I can share those results, but they were good in my favor, we'll say that.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, one of the most authentic voices in true crime. And I think when we're dealing with a case like this where there's so much misinformation, I think you do need an authentic channel that's credible and that you can rely on, don't you? Don't you think you need credible information from a reliable source? Clearly, we need to look more carefully and deeply into this case than we have thus far. Now, Martel has said that Jack is in pre-primary and Lily is in primary, and he said that they were not at school on Friday because Lily had a cough, and they were also homesick from school on Thursday. Now, again, one's got to wonder, can we rely on that information? Is that true? And if it is true, well then, if you have sick children, then there's a financial burden associated with that. If you have children that are sickly, that is going to, 2 children that are sickly and a baby, there are going to be expenses associated with that. And so a similarity that's hard to miss in this case is this impression that the kids were sickly. And I'm not sure I believe that. It's also possible that for whatever reason, at the end of the month, as the end of the month approached, the parents may have been incapacitated, possibly even intoxicated. And so it may be that dysfunction led to the kids not going to school, not the children being ill. If the kids were homesick, were they on any kind of medication? Was there any calls to the pharmacy? If that's true, this could also have compounded a situation. If there was stress, and I think there was, more specifically, it appears there could have been financial stress. Now, think about the contradiction. If the children were sickly, if they were homesick, then why would they wander off? They're not well enough to want to do that. We also know one of the first things Chris Watts did when he crossed the line into criminality was stop taking his girls to school. Why? Because he had other priorities on his mind. Interestingly, Daniel Martel is exactly the same age that Chris Watts was when the Watts family annihilation occurred, 33 years old. And while Watts' wife was pregnant when she disappeared, and there were also financial implications associated with that pregnancy, while Martel's partner was a relatively new mother to his child. And that brings us to the number 2 clue we all missed. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. As some of you may be aware, I've covered the Chris Watts case in a lot of detail, written a couple of books on that case, but also covered other missing children cases, Gannon Stork in Colorado, Madeleine McCann in Portugal, and Kylie Rodney in California. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please subscribe. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So what do you think? What is the number 2 clue we all missed? Well, it's this. Martell has said that Brooks Murray, that's his partner, is a stay-at-home mom and that he works at a local sawmill, and this is the pertinent part. But workers slowed down there in recent weeks, and he was not at work on Friday. Now, just think about the situation. He's not at work. His wife is looking after a baby. She's not at work. And the other kids aren't at school either. The pair have a young daughter together who Martell said is currently with her mother. Now, I think what's also interesting is they aren't married. Martell and Brooks Murray aren't married. There are 2 other kids in the equation, and you can see that there's certainly a recipe for instability. There's clearly uncertainty around income, how are we going to take care of this family? And so that is the situation. The number 2 clue is finances, more precisely a lack of. Finances themselves isn't the issue so much as how this young family have been responding or adapting to the finances. How do you deal with the stress of that situation? I also think the fact that these children disappeared so close to the end of one month and the beginning of another is significant. But let's go back to the pertinent point here. Work has slowed down there at the sawmill in recent weeks. So this has been going on not for a few days, but weeks. And we know he was not at work on Friday. Now, again, finances may be an issue for a family living in a rural setup, but it's particularly an issue with a 3rd baby in the picture and no one apparently working. And although the optics show that finances are an obvious issue, when we join the finances with the number 3 clue, that's when things get even more disturbing. Finances alone it's a hurdle that one can overcome. But when you have family dynamics that are to some extent dysfunctional, and again, what's really important is how you respond. Are you adapting to the situation, or is your response, your reaction to the stressful situation actually making it even worse? In other words, is it maladaptive? Now, there is one additional aspect I think we need to confirm at this point, and that's the fact that Meadow, the couple's 16-month-old child, appears to be in the temporary custody of Child Protection Services, who are also, interestingly, denying Daniel Martell access to her. The source for this is the Globe and Mail, an article published on May 10th, around about 3 weeks ago. It's unknown at this point whether the mother is being denied access as well. That is something we also saw in the Summer Wells case. One child disappears and the others are taken into protective custody amidst rumors of substance abuse, addiction, and poverty. This is a quote, an excerpt from that article from the Globe and Mail. I'll put a link to that in the description, dated May 8th. That afternoon, that's May 8th, a friend drives him, that's Danielle Martell, to the Children's Protective Services office in Stellarton, where he requests to see his 16-month-old daughter, but is denied. As of now, I can't be around Meadow, he said during an interview the following day. I wouldn't mind being able to see that interview. I haven't been able to locate it just yet. He goes on to say, with the kids going missing, Children's Protective Services wants to keep a tight leash on everything. Well, what more than that? We also know around May 8th or 9th, Daniel Martell didn't only ask for a polygraph test, but drug tests as well to clear his name. Although it's clear the polygraph came out in his favor, he's not mentioned the outcome of the drug tests. Not so far. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. In the next episode, we'll deal with the number 3 clue we all missed and how that clue holds hands effectively with the number 2 clue, potentially aggravating an already untenable situation. There's also recent news that it appears, possibly this weekend, that the search efforts may resume. And so I guess we've got to wait and see if anything is found. My advice to the search crews is to concentrate on the area in a 1 mile radius from the home. At this point, don't concentrate efforts in an area beyond that. Don't go further afield. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.